Hi everyone, welcome back to Sew You're Stuck at Home. Today we're going to go through the process of making a very simple tote bag from the scrap fabric you have at home. I'm using cotton today, but you can use anything you'd like. The idea for making the tote bags came from a request from some local charities that are distributing food to children in need who are not getting their meals from schools right now while the schools are closed. And they're in need of donations of bags. So I thought, well, we could show you how to make some if you'd like to, and you can donate those. Otherwise, they'll take any kind of bag that you have. And at the end of this video, we'll have a page that shows you what the charities are and where you can donate these bags. So be sure to look at the end of the video for that information. All right, so today the tote bag we're going to make looks like this. It's very simple. It's just one piece of fabric folded in half, with straps added onto it, and then a little bit of fancy sewing on it that's really simple to do. And today we're going to be working with this red fabric. So I start with a square of fabric that is 36 inches long by 17 inches wide, and then I fold it in half with the wrong sides facing each other. Wrong sides, on this red fabric you can't really see it, but the wrong sides would be the side that doesn't have the pattern on it, or is duller than the other side. This is the wrong side of the fabric. So when I started sewing this bag, it was like this. Here's a little piece that makes it a little easier to see. This is the right side of the fabric. This is the wrong side. The first thing I'm going to do is fold it so the wrong sides are facing each other. There, the wrong sides are together, facing each other. Then we'll be sewing a seam all the way up each side, about 1/4 inch seam all the way up each side. When we're done with that, we're going to then turn this bag inside out, and we're going to sew along the outside, and we're going to encase the seam that we've made here inside another seam. It's called a French seam, so that when we're done on the inside of the bag, it's going to be this enclosed seam. And that way you won't have any raw edges showing, and you won't get any unraveling of the fabric. All right, so now we're going to take the fabric, we folded it together with the fold here at the bottom on the short end. I'm just going to go to the sewing machine now, and I'm going to stitch 1/4 inch seam. And I'm using a contrasting white thread, so hopefully that'll make it a little easier for you all to see what I'm doing here. Just using a straight stitch. Stitch it at the top to secure it. And repeat on the other side. So now we have it all sewn on both sides. I'm going to clip off the extra thread. And we've got it sewn together, like so, both sides, on each side. We're now going to flip it inside out. So now, on your fabric, If you have a pattern fabric, this is what it should have the wrong sides on the outside now. And if you want, you can go, we'll go to the iron and we'll press this seam, make it easier to sew. Okay, so now we're here at the ironing board and I'm flattening out this seam, trying to get all the poofiness out of it so that I have a nice flat edge with the seam running exactly along the outside edge. This will make it much easier to sew this French seam. And just do this on both sides. Okay, now we're ready to sew again. Okay, so now we're going to come and we're going to do a seam that's maybe more like a 1/4 inch to a 1/2 inch. I want it to come down all the way down the side and encase the fold where it's sewn so that you don't have any of the edges sticking out. So kind of look to see where your fabric ends. You can kind of feel it with your finger. You're looking for where the fabric ends here. You want to make sure when you stitch that you're stitching over the top of that and enclosing that whole edge of the seam, of the raw edge of the fabric inside the new seam, so that it's completely hidden and tucked inside. Okay, back to the sewing machine now. So I'm going to use about my seam. I think I need to be more about 3/8 of an inch because I want to make sure I enclose the 1/4 inch seam allowance there. Back stitch, walk in. Can you see now? When you see it, you don't see any of the edges of the seam. You've encased it completely. So that's going to give a nice polished look to the inside seam. This is going to be on the inside. And it won't ravel, it won't show any ragged edges. But you do want to check along the whole seam length and make sure that all your edges are encased. If not, you may have to rip out a few stitches and sew over it so that you encase the whole seam. Okay? Looks good. So now we're going to do the same thing again on the other side. Okay, so now we have our bag and we have it still inside out. We're going to go back over to the ironing board now and fold over these edges so that we can sew the top part of the bag and have a nice finished edge at the top. It's going to look like that on the inside. Okay, you might want to have some pins handy because you may want to pin this as you go to hold it in place while you move back and forth to the sewing machine. So I'm going to come over and I want to fold this top edge over a 1/2 inch to start with, or a 1/4 inch, whichever. If your fabric's thinner, you can do a 1/4 inch. If it's a little thicker, you might need to do a 1/2 inch. So I'm just going to start here at the French seam, and I'm going to fold it over. And it's just going to give a nicer finished edge. I'm going to go all the way around and do this all the way around. I won't use any pins yet. I'll wait till I make the second fold. This is just to tuck the selvage in so we don't have any raveling. You can measure this every step of the way if you're not used to doing this with your measuring tape and making sure you folded it over the exact same amount. I'm kind of eyeballing it because I'm big enough that I can get away with that. But you do whatever you feel you need to do. Okay. And now that I have that, the next thing I'm going to do is fold it over about 1 inch this time. And we're going to go around and we're going to press that down. So this is where we're going to go all the way around again and make our flap. And this is where you might want to pin it at this point once you've got it, so that it stays folded and doesn't come loose. Okay, and there we are. We're finished with getting that prepped to sew now. So we'll go back to the sewing machine. Okay, so for this part, I'm going to have to sew around in a circle. This is a big tube, so I'm going to take off this part of my machine that will leave this part exposed so that I can put the fabric in and it'll go around this part of the machine as I'm working with it. All right, about 1/8 of an inch from the edge, we're going to top stitch here. Be sure not to sew over your pins because the needle could stick a pin and break, and you don't want to have to deal with that. Okay, can you see I'm sewing about 1/8 of an inch away. Hopefully you can see that right there on the white thread. little bit when you're going over that French seam, because there's going to be several more layers of fabric there than there are here in the rest of the piece. And go a little slower. And then you can move your pins and speed back up again. Stitch at the end. Okay, you have all your excess threads. And flip it inside out, or right side out now. Okay, and so now you can see that you have the nice folded or top stitched edge on your bag. On the inside you have a little bit of a seam, but on the outside it's perfectly smooth. Okay, now it's time to make the handles. And I started out with pieces of fabric that are 27 inches long by 3 inches wide. You can make the handles a little wider if you'd like. They could be 27 inches long by 4 inches wide. If you don't like the handles really long to go to the shoulder bag, you can shorten them up. You can make it whatever size you want. So they could be, 20 inches long instead of 27. You figure that out. You can adjust it how you want. After I've got the fabric cut, I need 2 handles to cut 2 pieces of fabric. Then I need to do some ironing. And we are going to iron over each edge. Again, a 1/4 inch to a 1/2 inch, probably more like 3/8 is what I've got here, on each end, long ways. Then I'm going to fold over each end the same amount so that I've covered over the ends and they're nice and clean and won't have any bare edges showing. So when we're done, it's going to be nice and smooth. Then we're going to fold it in half and press it all the way down so that we end up with a handle that looks like this. It's all pressed, and we are going to sew the edges and all the way down and back around on the other edge. Okay, so we're back here at the sewing machine. It's time to sew this together. So we're going to do about 1/8 of an inch seam, much like we did when we did the top stitching on the top rim of the bag. Maybe at the other end, stop about 1/8 of an inch from the edge, stop the machine with needle in place, flip it, and start sewing down the long end. If you feel more comfortable, you could have pinned this all the way if you feel more comfortable doing it that way. I chose not to pin it this time, but you're certainly able to do that. Pulled my edges under that came undone a little bit here at the edge, so I want to make sure the folds are right. Oops, and I should turn that around. I'm sorry, missed that. Turn it around one more time. And stitch the edge. Okay, all done. You're going to do the same thing for the other handle. Okay, so now we're ready to put the handles in place. So we're going to put the handle on the inside, and we're going to make it level with the stitching or the edge of the fold on the inside, so it doesn't protrude down below it. It's going to be right, and not up too high. It's going to be right level with it. And I want to put it about 3.5 inches in from the outside of the bag. So 3.5 is where the outside edge should be. I like to place the part with the stitching on it facing the inside, but you can do it the other way around if you choose. It's up to you. And then once I have that in place, and I can feel here and know that it's in place in the inside, then I'm going to pin it. Oops. It was in place, it slipped. Okay, make sure it's in place there. It's 3.5 inches from here to here. And I'm going to put a couple of pins in to hold it. Okay. And then I'm going to go over and make sure that you fold the handle so that it's not twisted or turned when you get over here, that you have it laid out so that when you put it on this side, that it's facing in the right direction. I'm going to fold this over, and we're going to measure 3.5 inches from this side, so I need to come down a little bit. Right about there is good, 3.5 for the outside edge. Make sure that I have it lined up. And then I'm going to pin that one. Now we're only pinning the top layer of the bag to the top, to the handle. Be sure not to catch this lower edge in the pins. Okay, we still need to maintain the machine in the configuration where I can run the fabric around and around the bottom part of the machine here. Okay, so we're getting ready to attach the handle, and we're going to have to make this little X stitch with a box around it, and that's going to secure the handle very well to the bag and give it some strength. So you can see it on both the inside and the outside. But we're going to stitch it on the outside, so make sure that we are controlling how it will look on the outside, and because that's the side you'll be seeing. So I'm going to sketch out how we're going to do it. Okay, so I like to make it this way. I'm going to stitch down and go around and make 2 sides of the box. Then I'm going to stitch down to the corner, come back to this side, and stitch down this way. It's all going to be about 1/8 of an inch in from the edges of the handle. And when I get back up here, I'm going to go a second time around, come down and do this, come all the way around and go around and secure that box with a second top stitching all the way around it. Okay, so I'm going to start at the top here. And take the pin out now. Let's stitch Come right over till you're even with the stitching that's on the handle here. Then pivot. And you can feel the edge of the fabric here. If you put your finger or fingernail down here and find the edge of the fabric inside, and then you can use that as a guide for where you're going to stitch. Stitch all the way down to the seam that's already there. Flip around. Oops. Said we're going to catty corner. And we're going to sew right down to the place where we started, to that corner. Meet up there. Then flip it back around now to complete the box on this side. Again, find that edge of the fabric with your finger. And sew down till you get to the other line of stitching. Now I'm going to flip it back and sew the other part of the X. Straight across, from one corner to the other. And now I'm just going to sew all the way around the outside one time. Just stitch right on top of the stitching you've already done, the existing stitching. And a little back stitch to secure. Okay, so now we finish the stitching. Trim off all the excess threads. And here's what it looks like. Outside, inside. Not as nice inside, but nice on the outside. Okay, so you will do that now for the other side of the handle. Then you're going to put on the second handle and do the same thing on both sides, and then your bag is done. And you have a nice little tote. And again, if you don't like this long a handle, you could shorten the handle to make it more of a hand holding rather than a shoulder tote. This is just kind of a simple cotton fabric, but maybe if you have something a little stronger, if you want a bag that'll hold a lot of things, a lot of weight, you might want to use something more like a cotton duck or a canvas or an upholstery fabric. That's a little stronger weight, a little heavier, and it will hold more weight. This will be nice for lightweight things or for packages of food or whatever. Okay. Thank you for joining us today. Be sure to take a look here at the end of the video on what you can, where you can donate your extra bags to those who need them.